What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. I'm going to give you my updated New Year's 6 predictions. Of course, did the playoff prediction video earlier this week. If you missed that, you can go back and check it out. I talked more about just the overall playoff picture, who I had in the playoff and why, all of that. So we'll quickly talk about those two games. Sugar Bowl, I've got Georgia versus Texas, 1 versus 4. SEC champion in Georgia going undefeated. Texas, I think, probably going to lose one game, but come back, win the Big 12 championship. That's going to be enough to get them in. And then Michigan running the table in the Big 10. For now, that's still my prediction. And then Florida State, also, I think they probably lose a game like Texas, but they come back, they win the ACC championship. And I've really been thinking about this lately. What happens if Florida State, Texas, and say USC are all conference champions with 1 loss? Because I think that's a very real possibility. And maybe even throw in a 1-loss Notre Dame, a 1-loss Penn State. I think we're going to have more of a battle for those 4 spots this year than we've had in quite some time. So let's get to the other New Year's 6 predictions here. And it's really tough for me to narrow this down because there are more teams than there are bowl games that I think have a chance to be New Year's 6 type caliber teams. So this is what I'm going with this week. Orange Bowl. All right. Miami versus Ohio State. How about this matchup? A rematch for the, I think it was 2003 national championship, if I remember correctly. I think Miami now is probably going to be that team out of the ACC. I'm just not convinced on North Carolina. They do this every year. They lose games they're not supposed to win, or they lose games that they're supposed to win. Almost happened against App State. I think they lose a few games. I think Miami might be that team to come out of the ACC, or perhaps no one winds up here. Well, no, you have to have an ACC team here. So you have to have ACC versus either SEC, Big Ten, or Notre Dame. And so I think Clemson could be that team still. I'm not giving up on Clemson, but was really impressed with Miami. And Miami gets Clemson at home. So if it comes down to that head-to-head matchup as far as who's ranked higher, I think it could be the Hurricanes. So I've got Miami. And then Ohio State, I was starting to lean more towards 9-3 for them just because of Penn State looking really good. And I thought Wisconsin could be a test. Notre Dame's looking really good. They've got to play Michigan. I'm kind of back to 10-2 for them now. Preseason, I was 11-1, and perhaps we're overreacting to these first couple of weeks. But the offense just doesn't look like I expected it to look. And I think that schedule is, again, still going to be tough. Notre Dame on the road could get them. Michigan on the road puts them at 10-2. Still enough to get to a New Year's 6 bowl. I don't really see them losing 3 out of those 4 games that I mentioned. So I'm going to say the Buckeyes get there, and they're ranked high enough, and they'll go to the Orange Bowl. Then we go to the Fiesta Bowl. So we're talking about at-large spots here at this point now. USC, I still think it's going to win the Pac-12 championship, but with a couple of losses. And again, if it's with 1 loss, do they get in over potentially Texas or Florida State? Boy, that's going to be really interesting. And we'll just have to wait and see what the resumes look like, what everyone else looks like at that point. But Alabama, I think, is probably going to be ranked high enough to get there. I think this team probably loses 1 more game in the regular season and then perhaps the SEC championship. But I still think that's going to be enough. I think they'll be ranked high enough. But I'm looking at other teams. Well, I'll talk about the other teams in a second. So I'm going USC, Alabama Fiesta Bowl would be a really fun matchup. And then we got the Peach Bowl, Penn State versus Notre Dame. I feel very confident that both of these teams will at least be 10-2. I don't, one of them could be 11-1. Both of them could be 11-1. One of them could run the table, but I feel confident that both of these teams will at least be 10-2. So I feel really good about that. And Penn State, Notre Dame here, that's going to be the matchup in the Peach Bowl. And then finally the Cotton Bowl, Washington versus Tulane. This was the same matchup I had last week. And now that I look at this, I realize I made the mistake that I almost made last week. They're not going to put Tulane in the Cotton Bowl. I originally had this in the Peach Bowl, but I thought it made more sense for Notre Dame, Penn State to go to the Peach Bowl. So flip those around. Penn State, Notre Dame, really, I guess you could probably put them in the Cotton Bowl and put Washington versus Tulane in the Peach Bowl. Just doesn't make a ton of sense for Washington to have to go all the way to Atlanta. But when you have several Pac-12 teams potentially in this race, you might wind up with that. So USC, Washington, and again, Oregon, I think is right there. So the teams that I want to put in here, but I just don't have enough spots. Oregon, I still think there's a really good chance they go 10-2, and then Tennessee. I think Tennessee still has a really good chance to go 10-2. I know they didn't look great against Austin Peay, but I still think they might get there. You're looking at other teams like, can LSU bounce back? Maybe it's Clemson instead of Miami. So it's really hard to predict at this point. The New Year's Six bowls are wide open. Even the playoff field is wide open. I don't really think there are 4 favorites. Throw in maybe Alabama bounces back and they win the SEC, or like I said, USC, or 11-1 Notre Dame, 11-1 Penn State. I could see a lot of different teams trying to get those final spots. And like I said, I think there's gonna be debates this year. I think we'll have more than 4 teams that feel like they have a shot. But remember, we'll go to a 12-team playoff next year. But this is what I've got for the New Year's Six bowls as of right now. I'd love to get your predictions. Let me know what you think down in the comments below.